Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Fintech Diaries. If it is your first time tuning in, hello. Quick introduction from me. My name is Jack Turrell, and I specialize in financial technology recruitment within the UK. Over the past couple of months now, I've been having some really insightful conversations with founders, CTOs, and other senior leaders within the fintech space, and to bring valuable content and educational content to technologists. Today, look, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Kevin Lester, and he's the CEO and co-founder of Validus Risk Management. For those who are unfamiliar, Validus is a leading risk management firm that actually specializes in providing technology-driven solutions for currency, interest rate, and commodity risk management. Kevin and I, in terms of topic of discussion today, discuss his journey into the world of technology, the challenges he faced in growing Validus, and I suppose like the cutting-edge, high-performance technology that they've currently utilized within the business, and more, which is coming up next. Good afternoon, Kevin. How's things? Thanks very much for joining me today.
Hey, Jack. Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me. Good to speak to you again.
Awesome. So first, just getting stuck into question one, and before we get into obviously learning more about your business and things like that, could you start by just telling us a little bit about your journey and experience into tech up to now?
Sure. Yeah, so my journey really started more in treasury, I would say, treasury management rather than technology. So I began my career kind of in the early 2000s, working for kind of large multinational companies in treasury functions. And this was kind of before treasury management systems became a thing. So we were doing a lot of work. Like I remember kind of like working on cash management using customized Microsoft Access databases and all, so very rudimentary tools, I would say. And that's kind of my introduction to tech. Quickly the industry evolved. You started to kind of get customized treasury management systems, your SunGuards, revals. So I began working with those systems, implementing, managing those systems. And they were obviously a step forward from what I'd been used to, but there was still something missing with those. I felt that they were really good at, managing data, really good at reporting, but not so good at analytics, and not so good at providing kind of actionable insights. And so when we started Validus, that was kind of what we were trying to do, was build on top of what was there in terms of kind of the TMS space.
Excellent. Fantastic. In terms of then, I know you touched on it briefly there, but could you provide a bit of an overview of Validus, the history and I suppose like the core services that you guys are offering essentially?
Yeah, sure. So we started the company in 2010, so coming up for our 15th birthday in a few months. The way the company started was, me and my co-founder were working together in a brokerage business where we were effectively providing advisory services, risk advisory services to companies. Okay. So effectively helping them determine their exposure to market risks like currencies and interest rates. A lot of these companies happen to be owned by private equity. And so we started to kind of build a network in private equity. And this was just in the aftermath of the financial crisis, obviously 2008 and 2009. And so there's a lot of questions from private equity about how do we manage risk. This was something that companies knew how to do really well. There's a lot of accepted best practice, but when it came to private equity, there wasn't. And so that was, I guess, the opportunity that we saw was, can we build a business, on the back of this need to help private equity. It's expanded to more private capital more generally now, but to help these guys manage risk the same way, companies do, banks do, hedge funds do. So that was the original idea. It started as an advisory business, so providing advice. If you fast forward to today, we've got kind of three core pillars in the business. Okay. The first is still that advisory business, which is kind of like a management consulting style business. The second is our capital markets business, where effectively we trade derivatives on behalf of our clients. And then the third pillar is technology. And technology is super important to us, both as a product, so we provide technology to our clients as a product, but also it's the backbone of those other two pillars as well. The advisory services that we do, we could do them without tech, but we've really made them scalable through technology. Yeah. What used to take us 2 weeks now takes us a day or less. Or to enable us to trade the volumes we trade, doing that without the systems that we've developed would be possible. So technology is super important to that. But that's kind of the journey of the company. So today we're about 100 people in offices in 5 countries. So it's been a good journey.
Excellent, fantastic. In terms of, I suppose, challenges, what sort of challenges have you faced while trying to grow the business? Could you shed a bit of light on that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's been a lot, as probably many people who start businesses probably agree with me. I think there's 2 that I would probably highlight when it comes to technology, which I thought would be appropriate here. The first would be, it was kind of a challenge and an opportunity, I guess. But when we started the business, we were coming up against very well-established incumbents. So we were a new entrant in a market that was served by companies that had been around for decades, established themselves, and we had to kind of break in with something new, which is always a challenge. I think one of the things that from a technology standpoint that we really benefited from was the era of effectively the transition from client server type product to cloud product. And I think we really benefited from that. So a lot of our competitors had built their platforms on very old tech, whereas we were building, based upon, new technology, much cheaper, much faster. So in effect, we were able to build products, in a much more efficient way, I think. So that allowed us to break into a market that, was and is competitive. But I think that was one challenge. A second challenge, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, is just hiring talent. I think, especially, we really ramped up our engineering team probably 2 or 3 years ago. We effectively tripled the size of the team. That's always difficult anyway.
Of course.
We also had to do it, or we wanted to do it all in London. We looked at potentially outsourcing or offshoring, but for us, effectively, our technology represented the productization of our IP, and so it was really important that the engineers and developers were sitting next to our quants and our traders and our. So we really wanted to build the team in London, which we did. Very competitive market. We're also competing against, very large institutions for talent. Like the types of people we would hire would also be very attractive to banks, asset managers. So as a relatively, small scale up business, that has been a challenge for sure. And I think we've done pretty well, but I would say there are two major challenges that we've had along the way.
100%. What about in terms of the plans for the future then? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, again, to stay on the technology theme, I think, one thing we're looking to do is just broad. So our product, as I mentioned, is very much built for private capital managers. And so what we're trying to do is we're not trying to displace the TMS system, the treasury system, but we're trying to build around it. So we're trying to build effectively for the office of the CFO of a private capital manager, all of the other financial technologies that they need in a platform. So we have a lot of that already, the risk analytics, the trading capabilities, but we're looking to build other capabilities alongside that. Things like regulatory reporting, which we started to build, things like fund finance, basically helping CFOs manage all of the different relationships they have with banks and financial providers. So part of it is just building more functionality in the platform. I think the other part is making the platform better. So I think tools like machine learning and AI are going to be really important. So we've started to incorporate those tools in different ways into our platform, which is really exciting.
Yep.
We just built a new tool recently, for example, which takes, so basically a lot of our business involves trading with banks. To trade with banks, you need a lot of documentation.
Of course.
And so what this tool does is it basically reads all that documentation and is able to provide, ex ante analytics in terms of when, for example, you might be at risk of breaching a covenant or a collateral call or something like that. So I think that's pretty interesting tech, and that that's a big priority for us is to kind of build that out.
100%. And you mentioned tech a little bit there, which falls quite nicely into my next question. But can you walk us through some of the technology stack? And we mentioned sort of, machine learning and AI, but what about the software, the tools, the programming languages? What does that look like for you and your team?
Yeah. So I mean, for our tech, I guess when it comes to our tech stack, the first thing to keep in mind is what does our technology do? So basically it's very important that our technology is able to do a lot of complex tasks very quickly and very scalably. So that's what we're trying to do. So in terms of what we're using to do that, we use Python for prototyping. So that's kind of how when we come up with an idea or start building a new product, we typically start there.
Okay.
When it comes to kind of performing critical tasks on the platform, we're using Rust for that. I think things like real time. We use a lot of real time streaming financial data, currency rates and things like that. So Rust we use for that, and kind of more complex pricing and risk analytics. We're using Rust for that as well. From an AI perspective, we use AWS, and our whole platform basically is fully deployed on AWS servers. So it's a really really core part of our platform.
100%. I think final question for me then was just on the sort of technological trends. Pete, how does Validus stay ahead of the technological trends, and how do you ensure continuous innovation within your team?
Yeah, so I think it's a really important question for us, or for any business. But I think when it comes, I think complacency is probably the most one of the most dangerous things for a business. So we're always trying to make sure that we're not complacent, and we're looking to remain innovative and on the cutting edge. So a lot of the way we do that is through partnerships, and that's both with kind of service providers and clients. I think a really interesting example on the service provider side is some work we've been doing. So we, as I mentioned before, our platform relies a lot on real-time data. So we need to be able to basically aggregate and report real-time data very efficiently and very fast. So we use, for example, Bloomberg to get a lot of that data. And so we recently, a year or so ago, we worked very closely with Bloomberg and with AWS on basically enabling this real-time data to stream over AWS. And at the time, I think we were the only company in Europe that were doing that, one of very few companies in the world. So kind of a very cutting edge, very innovative initiative. I think AWS even did a case study on it, which was excellent, which was nice. But yeah, I think partnerships with our service providers are really important there. And also I think with clients, we work very closely with our clients, and that helps us obviously understand, what they want, how they prioritize their requirements, and then, we can allocate resources to develop things that they want. So I think partnerships basically is the key, and kind of leveraging that as much as possible.
100%. Excellent. Great answer. I suppose, look, I just wanted to take a minute to say, look, thanks very much for joining me today. It was great to have you on. As always, I'll be sure to tag both yourself and the business in the post. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys continue to make waves.
Perfect. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jack. Thanks for having me, and we will speak soon.
Thanks very much.
All right.